My Rescue 101 class, I'm going to call that today. I don't know why it just popped out, but it sounds good. So first let me just go over what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go over a few things. We're going to talk about protocol, before and after. We're going to talk about the astral plane. We're going to talk about reasons that spirit gets stuck. We're going to talk about how to identify lower level spirits or lack of. We're going to talk about methods and techniques to help spirits transition into the light, which is what we call rescue. And possibly a demonstration of some channeling at the end, if spirit is willing. Feels like spirit is willing, so we're going to definitely have to demonstrate. I'd like to start out with my little introduction, a little disclaimer. So I'm Jared, and I've been doing rescue work since I was very young. I didn't know what rescue was. Ironically, I was having some problems with the spirit, and Patricia, ironically, this is a really weird circle that this happened today, but I've been having spirits come to me, and I've been helping the spirits. I've been trying to figure out what they needed and how to help them. They'd show up as I was a little kid at the line of spirits on the side of my bed, and it would always be the minute the last person in the house fell asleep, I would start getting chills, and I would know there was somebody standing there, and then I'd have to go through a process. Back then all I had were yes or no questions, and I'd start asking yes or no questions. Is there somebody here? And I would get chills. Yes, there's somebody here. And I'd be like, are you a man or a woman? So it was a process of 21 questions, basically. That was all I had at the time. That's all I knew. It was chills. Chills for me was a yes. So I did this not knowing what I was doing for a very long time, not really knowing how to help them or what to do, but just getting the habit of doing this process and finding out what the spirits needed and counseling them. So I was pretty familiar with spirit and what they did, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know it was rescue. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know anything, really. I just knew that this is normal for me. And so we go into this. Me and Wendy were having problems with the spirit in our location where we were. And we went to a place where Patricia was. And we didn't tell anybody about it. Patricia got up in front, like we knew here, and she says, I feel a spirit here that needs to go into the light. And together, her and the other people in the building just very easily sent this gentleman into the light. And when I felt it, I knew it was real. I felt it. It happened. You know what I mean? It happened. And we went home and we were like, wow, that was like easy. And in the process, Patricia came up to me afterwards and she gave me this book called Darkness and the Light by John Brooker. He's been passed since he wrote this. Since I've gone there, he has passed. She gave me this book and she said, you're a spirit work rescue worker. And I didn't know what rescue meant. So, and she sent me home with this book. And I went home and I read it, and I don't read a lot, but I read this book from front to back without stopping. If you know me, that's a big deal. It's a little book, I know. But seriously, I was so interested in it that I read the whole thing. And so it was important because, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what rescue was. I didn't know, but I knew this was me. And when she said that to me, I felt it. And so, long story short, here we are. Patricia decides to start coming in and visiting us here, and she walks in today. And the last time I did a rescue class, I loaned this book out, and I never got it back. And this morning, when I was preparing for this class, I thought, man, I don't even have the book. And I thought, I must not need it. Maybe I just don't need it. And I get here, and she walks up, and she's like, I feel like you need this book. And she doesn't even remember all this story that I just told you about how she rescued, and, because we don't remember everything we do, and she didn't know none of that, and she doesn't know what a pivotal part she was in me becoming a medium or a rescue work or any of that. So anyway, I had to get that out just to tell you guys how spirit works in our lives and how this big full circle came around, and we'll talk more about this later. Okay, so then my disclaimer. So my disclaimer is, this is my opinion. I am not I am not the expert on rescue. These are just techniques and ways that I have learned to do this. And no one's really taught me, other than this book, how to rescue. It's just stuff that I've learned along the way. It's things that work for me. So when I say that, if it's my opinion on how it works, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. Okay? So I am not the end all, say all on rescue work. I never would claim to be. Okay? So that's important to get that out of the way. All right, so the next thing we're going to do today is we're going to do a little meditation. So everybody get comfortable, relax. Pull out your big boy bubble, big girl bubble. You take a moment to just focus on the water. power of the water. Flexibility. The energy. And as you focus on this water, allow yourself to get comfortable. Really sink into your seat. Taking in a deep breath. Positive energy. And exhaling anything you don't need. Again, a deep breath. We're going to start today by doing a little grounding. So pull up your best tool for grounding. Maybe visualize roots growing out of the bottom of your feet. Going out in every direction. Feel your feet sinking into sand or into earth. Feel a chain dropping out, anchoring you like a giant ocean liner. But as you do this, I would like you to feel the energy going down into the earth and then coming back into your body. Down and back. Down and back. As you get comfortable with your connection to Mother Earth, we're going to bring up a bubble of protection, our own personal bubble, all the way around us. Whatever that looks like for you. This bubble, this personal bubble of protection, the purpose of this protection is to only allow whatever you agree, whatever your guides agree is good for you. Nothing else can penetrate this personal bubble. That has the highest good intentions for you. And today we're going to ask for a second bubble of protection to come up around the outside of that bubble. This one has a lot of energy to it, a lot of power. And this bubble is being created by your protecting guides as they stand above and beside you and behind you. They create a force field around you. These are your gatekeeper guides, your protectors. It's their decision on what to let in. And then collectively, we're going to bring up another bubble of protection around all of us. It's going to be a big white light. And as we bring this bubble of protection around us, the white light is fed from above. It fills our bubble of protection like a big canopy. As the room gets whiter and whiter and lighter. Once again, this bubble of protection is unconditional love coming from Source, and nothing but the best and highest good can come through without our permission. take a minute to bring your attention back to your breathing. Focus on the tip of your nose as the air comes in and out. In and out. Bringing your attention back to your physical body and your grounding. We're going to leave these bubbles of protection up. We're going to leave this grounding connected at all times as we continue on. All right, guys, come on back. Drink some water. Move around a little bit. And we'll continue. All right. Give you guys a minute. So the first question is, what is rescue work? And, I talked about not knowing what that meant. Soul rescue is, when you just say rescue work, a lot of people think animals right away. They're like, oh, you're going to help with dogs? No. You say soul rescue, but it's just helping spirits that are stuck in the astral plane go into the light. And so there's different kinds of rescue workers. There's different kinds of reasons why we need to do rescue work, which we're going to go into a little bit. But I thought it'd be important to talk about what some of the types of rescue work are. So one of the main ones that people know about is full trance channeling. So full trance channeling is when it's the big woo-woo one. It's the one everybody likes to see. It's when someone goes into a full trance. And when I say full trance, I mean that they're not aware of what's happening. So full trance is, I'm up here, I go away, my body's available, a spirit can use my body to communicate with you, talk to. So that's a full trance channel. And so what you might see a little later today is we're going to do a little full trance channel. Someone's going to go completely out of their body, allow the spirit to use that body to talk through them. And then a rescue worker will sit and communicate verbally, and you guys can all hear that on how we talk them into the light. So that would be, like I said, the big woo-woo one, full channel. Then there's partial trance channeling, which is where the person who is doing the channeling is not completely gone. So they're in a meditative state. They can communicate through them, but they're not completely gone. Now, I have never been able to completely full trance channel. I can do partial trance channel, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult because your ego is still in there. And so one of the things you'll learn about channeling of any kind is that our ego is the biggest defeater of it. We won't believe what we're getting. We're in the way a little bit. So when I say partial trance channel, that's what I mean. I mean that you're still aware of what's happening. You can still allow them to talk through you, but you kind of have control of what's going on behind the scenes. So that's partial trance channeling. And for me, I wish I could do full channel because I feel like I gave it away. I feel like I'm fighting it the whole time. But maybe that's just because I've never done it, I don't know. But that's partial. So then there's some other ways, which is psychic abilities. So there's clairvoyance, empath, which is, like I talked about originally, that's all I have. So in my head, I have spirits come to me, and I feel them with my empath abilities. I feel them in the room. I clairvoyantly communicate with spirit. I try to ask questions. I feel them, and that's another way that you can do rescue work. And most rescue work is done like that. I think most rescue work is done clairvoyantly. And you feel spirit, you either talk out loud or in your head to them and try to convince them to go into the light, or to help them go into the light, whatever we're needing to do. So I think that's one of the most common ways it's done. And then tools. There's also tools that can help you. The problem with tools is that tools can be affected by lower level spirits. But so can your clairvoyance, so can a lot of other stuff. I mean, a lower level spirit can affect the tool wrongly, or they may not know what the right answer is. So you're not getting that necessarily. Sometimes it can be effective. But when I originally started, I used a pendulum and I kept it on the side of my bed, as you can see. Right on the side of my bed, because like I said, every night I would just be spirits that would show up in the line of them, and I learned to reach and grab for my pendulum. And this is a real good chart of all these different things you can do with a pendulum. Does everyone know what a pendulum is? So a pendulum for me, it swings no this way and yes this way. Okay? Because I bought this book first and it says no that way and yes that way. That's the only reason. Some people program it the other way. If you can say, if it's you can program it to go yes this way, no this way. It doesn't matter, it's you. It just matters for you. So, like I said, yes or no is all I had. So this was a good confirmation for me. Like I'd get a yes chills, and then I'd also check on here, and if it said yes, then I would have two things to confirm what I was feeling. And so I would just ask yes or no questions. And this is how I started doing rescue work, the side of my bed. Then these are the only 2 pages I use in this whole entire beautiful book. Yes or no. Numbers, so I can get ages. I'll say, how old were you when you died? And it'll go like the, and so what you have to understand is, it'll go to 60-something, and the number will pop in my head, and I'll know 63. And I'll let in my head, 63, and I'll get the chills if that's a yes. So this is just one of the ways that I would do that. And then this is a letter one and a number one. And so I can spell out names with this. So I started to do this every night. This is how I would, when they come to me, I'd say, who's here? I'd find out why. All the questions we're going to go over later. And then I'd be able to actually get a name. So anyway, this is one of the tools that I use quite frequently. Okay. So do you think of anybody, is there any other ways that people do rescue work that I'm missing? Any you think of?
Well, you seem to be, and usually you get a hostile word going in with the technical, but you're yelling at the spirit, and that's not advice. So that's why we need to refrain people, and you want to be respectful and show the love and light, because then the fear goes away.
I'm going to get into that a little bit. Yeah. No, it's okay. I just mean other ways to do rescue work. I don't really think they do a lot of rescue work in those. They find them, they prove them, and then they send one of us in to do the rescue work if they do that. You know what I mean? So honestly, I don't know that that's considered rescue work at all.
Well, in the UK more, they are more respectful and they bring the mediums along so that they can.
Right. All right. So one of the things I left out in my disclaimer that I wanted to talk about at the beginning is why I think this is so important. Because there's this big fear, and I didn't talk about the fear first, and so apparently we're going to talk about it now. There's a big fear when it comes to ghosts and lower level spirits. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to mess with that. Let me just tell you, if you're doing spiritual work, you're going to come across this. This is an important part of what you're doing. This is critical, and it's being left out. It's being left out, and it's being ignored. And you can't always ignore this. I don't think it's wise to ignore this kind of stuff. These spirits are people just like you when you have. We call them lower level, but I don't even like that term because they're not lower level. There are lower level people alive that I have met on this earth plane. You understand what I mean? There are people that can physically harm you here that you ought to be a lot more worried about than anything I've ever come across in spirit. And that's the truth. And so there's this big fear, and a lot of people will differentiate this fear. There are dangers in this. There are dangers in this. And I will tell you that we're going to go into protocol. I guess we're going to go right into it. So here we go. So in doing this protocol and this safety, we did a little bit in the beginning. We're going to protect ourselves very strongly before we do any kind of this work. Okay? A lot of times, though, this stuff comes out of nowhere. What I have learned about the safety of this is if you go looking for rescue work, you can get yourself in trouble. When it comes to you, when your guide brings you somebody to rescue, I've never been unsafe. Not once have I ever been sitting on the side of my bed and had a guide bring me a spirit that you need to rescue that was dangerous to me. Never once. So that's a good indicator. But if you go, oh, there's this haunted house over here, and I think we should go rescue, and you go looking for it, you better make sure you are you're in your own comfort zone and you know what you're doing. Do you understand that? Like, if you're being asked to come there to help, and your guide, and you feel like guides are telling you to do it, then yeah. But if you feel over your head, then you go to somebody else who knows what they're doing. And that's been my take on this. So if you want to gauge whether or not this is dangerous for you, then did your guides bring this to you, or are you going looking for it? And that's the key. Like honestly, if you go looking for it, you could get yourself in trouble. It may be dangerous. Okay. I talked about before, so we do a little bit of protection, and everybody's protection is different, right? So here's the key to all of this stuff. Protection, it's your own belief. If you're not strong, walking into this, if you don't believe you're protected, guess what? You're not. You're not. If you believe you're protected, then you are. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever you got to do beforehand, whatever rock you got to carry, whatever stick you got to have with you, whatever bubble you got to put on you to do it, if it works for you, then you're protected. But the minute you are in there going, I don't know, then you're not. So it's all intention. It's all what you believe. It's all how strong you are with your belief system. So we do that beforehand, and we don't go into it if we're not. If you don't feel it, you walk away. Okay? And then afterwards, this is the big one. And this is the one I made mistakes on many times. Because you will get involved with some spirits that will get in your head a little bit sometimes, and you will forget afterwards. You will forget afterwards. But after you do any kind of rescue work, you have got to do some kind of clearing. You've got to protect yourself again. You've got to make sure that you have some kind of protocol set up for you that you can make sure you're clear. Before, I say before I go home. Because whenever it's like this, it's usually somewhere else. But you just got to make sure before you leave that you... So I'll go to another location. This is what I like to do. I like to go stop somewhere and eat. And then I like to make sure everything's clear, everything's gone before we go. And I've made this mistake. We've gone to some places and you forget. And then you go home. And then 3 days later, you can't figure out what's going on because you forgot to clear this energy. And that can happen. And those are some of the dangers that are involved. But that's my, so it's really important. I drive this home all the time that the afterwards, the after protocol, everybody does it beforehand, but everyone forgets after, and I forget too. So, and I was never afraid of anything. So Spirit never scared me, so I didn't think I had to do protocol until you meet that one that scares you a little bit, and then you got to do some protocol. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of how it worked for me, and so I hope I can drive that home. That protocol beforehand, protocol afterwards, clearing, protection, clearing, corrections, whatever that looks like. Whatever spray you got to spray on you, whatever thing you got to burn, whatever you know what I mean. Whatever that is, do it. All right. Probably talk more about protocol, but I'm going to move on. All right, so we're going to talk about how to identify lower level spirit. And, this is, like I said, these are some of my ways that I tell, but everybody's different. There's a lot of different ways that people can recognize lower level. So we're gonna talk about what lower level is a little bit in a second. So for me, so I got a little chart over there, kind of a silly little chart that popped into my head last time I did one of these classes. I saw that, so I wrote it down. So there's the earth plane, and then there's the astral plane, and then love is the light. Okay, real simple way to look at it. And the astral plane is connected more to the earth plane than it is to the light. So it's actually part of the earth plane. So you got to think of it as being still part of the earth plane. So the earth plane and the astral plane are more connected than the light is. They're one and the same. They're different, but they're kind of closer together. And so when we talk about lower level spirits, we're talking about ones that are in that astral plane. And that astral plane is, they also call it the dream state and the emotion and desire state. So that makes it real clear to understand what that's like, the emotion and desire state. And so one of the ways that I can tell a lower level spirit, when I'm giving readings to somebody, private readings or any kind of readings, and I feel a spirit that it's kind of like hiding. It doesn't come forward, but it's kind of hiding. That's one of my ways I can tell. It's kind of a hiding feeling, like they don't quite want to show themselves. That's a lower level thing for me. I have a lot of physical effects with lower level spirits, dizziness. If I walk through a place where there's a lower level spirit, I get a little dizzy feeling. It's very much just hits me quick, and that's one of the ways my body reacts. A lot of people get nauseous. We'll get like a nauseous feeling sometimes to their stomach. Heart racing, like my heart will race sometimes. Let's see what else. They'll appear cloudy to me too. When I feel the spirit, it won't form. It'll form kind of a cloudy appearance in my mind. Instead of being what it normally is, it kind of seems cloudy or vague, and they seem to hide. So anybody else in here, what other ways do you guys have to tell the difference between lower level?
They're bloody, so like you can see what happens to them. Like if they're crossed over, they're not going to carry their injuries with them. And that's one thing.
Anyone else?
Anxiety.
So it's emotion. So basically what I was trying, the emotion desire state. So a spirit that's in the astral plane still feels the emotions that we feel here. They really still feel it. And so when I feel a lower level spirit, I actually feel the emotion, the panic, the whatever that is. I still feel it very strongly. Once the spirit goes into the light, they can show you an emotion, but they're not feeling it anymore because that's attached to these planes. So they don't, in spirit, they're not actually making you feel it. They're actually just showing you, hey, I was sad. And you'll be able to tell it was sad, but you're not actually crying.
Okay.
When I'm channeling and I'm feeling when I'm doing partial channeling and I'm feeling someone who's very sad, I can't stop myself from bawling because I'm feeling that emotion. So it's a desire. So they still feel the desires and they still feel the emotions. And that is the biggest way you can tell.
Okay.
That is the biggest way to tell. But I will tell you, a lot of them hide. They don't show you a lot sometimes. And so sometimes when you're looking for that, it's the fact that they're hiding that gives it away. It gives it away. Anybody else? Have ways they physically or know when it's lower level spirit?
I think your thoughts are not your own. You affect your thinking. And they say, well, where's that? But that's not me. So,
Yeah, but it's also the way the thought is because you can get that with spirit also. That's not necessarily always lower level, but sometimes it's the way the thought feels that it's not correct. Like
yeah,
Yeah.
it's mind and body and the physical.
I'm gonna pick up on what Christian was saying there. For me, I think thinking about it now that you're saying it, I put it in my way, it's like they have their own opinion about something.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like guidance, it feels like an opinion, if I ask you your opinion. And so it comes off like that.
yeah, it's an opinion with
Yeah.
their emotion behind
That
it.
emotion.
So it has the emotion because you can still get an opinion from spirit, but it's not with the intention and the emotion that comes from a lower level.
Just simply put it, it's your earth. Yeah.
And it's important that you find out what that is for you because everybody's different. Everybody, senses things differently. And so those are the kind of things you look for. Like, what is, so these are things that over time I started to notice, whenever I get this dizzy feeling, it's because there's a spirit here and it's not in the light yet. You understand? So for you, it could be different. But those are all signs and symbols that we all work out. Okay. So we're already talking about it a little bit, but I'm going to read this. It says, the astral plane. Rescue work is conducted on the astral plane. It is a level of awareness we all experience immediately after death. The astral plane is the dream state or emotion desire plane, where we outgrow many of the attachments we have to the physical world. So I got that directly out of this book that we're going to talk a little bit more about. But so did everybody get that? Everybody goes to the astral plane when they pass. Everybody, this is the place where we go to let go of attachments to the physical world. So we all go that, and it's where we can. They also call it the dream state, and it's important to know that we can create or recreate whatever we think there. Whatever we think, we can create there. And they say that about this plane also. They say you create whatever you think. But it's hard for me to grasp that. I just can't grasp that. But I can, because of what I've seen, grasp it for this astral plane. So whatever you think, you can create there. So, if I think I'm going to hell, when I die, guess what I create? If I think there's going to be pearly gates when I die, then that's what I create. If I think I don't deserve to go to heaven, or if I deserve this, so anyway, we'll go into that later, but it's important you know, and a lot of people get stuck there because they recreate their last moments, because that's what they can't get past that. So we'll go more into that, but so I don't know a lot about this astral plane. I don't claim to know a lot about it, but this is just what you need to know here for rescue work. These are just a few little things you need to know. And the most important thing to remember is there's a lot of emotion, desires there, and that you recreate whatever it is that you think you can create.
I can tell you, you want to share a little bit?
Sure, please.
There's several, in spiritualism, we're talking about, there's seven layers of the astral. And there's the first seven, which are lower energies, which are So the earth down dead all around the earth. And then the spiritual calling of summerlands, we begin to go up in the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. And as you get, the seventh is where most of us will hang out. This is where we'll create these beautiful things like what bees may come, where the colors so vividly. It's a beautiful life. That's the seventh level of the astral before you go into the mental realm.
Yeah. So there's like there's a bunch of levels of the astral plane, and there's a lot of, there's places where kids go, there's places where, you can go into, there's some really low level stuff that goes on in that plane. If you realize that you can create, you can relive your desires that you had on the earth plane, you come to that realization that you can do that. You go into this place where you can create whatever desires you want. You can imagine there's a whole lot of places where there's people living out desires in lower level areas with that. So there's as many, I think there's a lot of places like that, a lot of different levels in the spirit world. I don't have experience knowing all those, but I do know that is the case. All right. So let's talk about, if we just led into, how do spirits get stuck? So when we were talking about doing spirit work, so most people, I think, most spirits, I think, when they pass on, in a very short period of time, I feel like they move into the light. I physically felt this before. I've been around when people have passed and they go into the light. You feel it, it's very amazing. I think most people do that, but some people get stuck. Some people get stuck in that plane of existence, in one of those levels. And we've already kind of touched on some of the ideas, but let's go over this. So the first one is sudden or traumatic death. Or sudden and traumatic death. So if someone dies in a car accident, someone gets murdered. Okay, and we talked about somebody reliving their last moments. They're reliving it. They're in shock. They don't know what's going on. They don't realize that they're been killed. And so they relive that. And so you see a lot of stuff about hauntings and buildings, and a lot of this evidence is people who are murdered or people who are killed. And that's one of the main ones we all know about. We all know about those. Overdose. I'm going to talk about overdose. So, ironically, I've done a few rescues on overdose. I've done quite a few. Considering my background is in addiction, I get a lot of overdose. Spirit brings me a lot of overdose or drug-related deaths. A lot of these people don't know they're dead. They think they're still alive. They think, wow, this is a good one, man. It's like, woo, check this out. Like, wow. You know what I mean? And they just recreate being high forever. And they live in this eternal highness, which sounds pretty good, but there goes the addiction part of me again. But it just goes on and on and on, and they get stuck in this. And so that's one of the big ones. Confused people, old people. They don't know they're dead. They just think they're still sitting in their chair and watching TV. I get a lot of that, a lot of rocking. I call them rocking chairs. They're all sitting in the chair watching TV. They just don't even know they passed. And those are interesting. Some Alzheimer's, but a lot of Alzheimer's patients, I feel like the reason why, this is just my opinion, but Alzheimer's patients, a lot of them are already visiting both sides before they pass. I just feel that they're already half there, and I think that's why. So that when they do die, they already are comfortable with that, and they don't get stuck. Because otherwise they would just not know what's going on and be stuck. And so I think that's why that happens. I think that's why that they're already Alzheimer's patients are already halfway there most of the time. And then the biggest one is fear. Fear is the biggest. Fear is, if you guys know me, fear is all I talk about, it seems like. But fear is the biggest thing that keeps people from going into the light. Fear. Where does this fear come from? Well, the biggest one is religion. If you ask me, religion is the biggest reason that I see out there that spirit doesn't go into the light. People were raised to believe that they are going to go to hell, and they believe it. People are raised to believe there's no forgiveness for what they've done. That unless they did this, and this when they were alive, they're not going to get to do this. And they believe that. They believe it. And so guess what? When you die, you recreate what you believe, right? You recreate what you believe. And I've talked with many spirits, and I say to them, well, why go to the light? And they're like, I can't. I was a bad man, or I did this, or I did this. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. But that's one of the biggest ones. And it's one of the reasons why I struggle with religion so much. If it wasn't, my opinion on organized religion is very skewed by my rescue work. Because I've run into so many spirits in rescue that their lives, they've been stuck for I don't know how many years because of what organized religion has taught them about heaven and hell. And so that's why a lot of my, that's why I struggle with organized religion. Guilt. There's a lot of guilt. People have a lot of guilt when they die. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. They feel guilty for things that they've done on the earth, and they don't know there's forgiveness in the life. So our job as rescue workers is just to convince them that there's forgiveness for everyone. Don't want to leave their loved ones. That's actually a huge one. That's a huge one. I have a wife and 2 kids. I'm not leaving them. I get this all the time when I do private readings for people that their loved ones are still there because they don't want to go because they can't leave them. They can't leave them. They need them. They need them. You know what I mean? And one of the biggest tools I have in that instance, what they don't realize is that by them being around in this level, it affects them negatively. They feel sad every time they feel them. And so I convince them that, hey, you can still visit from the other side and actually you can help more from the light. And you're affecting them negatively because every time you're around right now, they feel sad instead of happy and they can't heal. And that usually does the trick. That usually does the trick. Belief in nothingness. So if you walk this earth believing when you die that you just die and there's no existence afterwards, and then guess what you create when you die? Nothingness. And so when so there's just nothing there. Then we talked about this one a little bit, living out desires. People get trapped in living out desires. And from what I understand, there's a whole bunch of those levels where people are living out desires. And you could only imagine, if you could right now create whatever desires you have and live them out, how many different levels there are of people living out desires in this state. There's a bunch more. There's children. A lot of children get trapped because they don't have anybody in the light. There are special workers that come for them, but they're told not to talk to strangers, and you get a lot of children that get trapped for that reason. There are special workers that work just with children. Let's see. You guys think of any other reasons why people might get trapped? Oh, I got them all.
They made a commitment on earth.
Right. Forgot about that one. Yeah. Some people made a commitment that they weren't going to leave until that person was okay, or but that's forgot.
Yeah, let's follow it out, that you didn't complete it.
Didn't complete the tasks. Yeah. I didn't finish my job, so I can't go because I had to finish my job before I could go to Hawaii. Yeah. Good.
How about maybe interference that's inside that realm where you have other spirits that are more powerful or keeping them there for their kids?
Yeah, but that has to, in order for that to work, they have to be struggling with one of these things. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody can really keep you from the light unless you are struggling with one of these things. So if you're not already struggling with the fact that you thought you were going to go to hell, somebody can't step in and tell you, hey, yeah, you can't go. You understand that? So it's still you. So you can still rescue that person without that interference. You don't, you understand?
What about anger?
Where does anger come from?
Guilt.
Fear. We already talked about it.
Anger at a person still on the physical plane.
Why are you angry at them? Because you're afraid they did something to you that's unforgivable.
They did something,
Yeah. It's all fear. It's all fear. Fear you're not going to settle the score before you die.
Yeah.
Fear that they got one over on you. Fear that, it's always fear. Anger is always fear. The more angry you are, the more afraid you are. Everything going on here. Okay. So now we talked about some of the reasons why spirit gets stuck. Let's talk about some of the methods to rescue them. So these methods that I'm talking about, I guess I gotta say this because we got a little trouble last time I did this class, but some spirits are very easy. You just tell them go in the light. Those are the easy ones. We're not talking about the easy ones today. We're talking about the sticky ones. So when I give you these methods today, this is not just the average, oh, there's a spirit here, go to the light, and they go to the light. That's not what we're talking about. Those are easy, but that can be done. there are those kind of spirits, and there are people who are powerful enough to just do that. I mean, I've experienced it when I came to you guys. You guys were just like, go to the light. There was enough of you there that he just listened. I've been trying to tell him that for months, but I didn't know what I was doing, you know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? So there is that, you can just tell them to go to the light. But I have a little different way of doing it, and this is my way of doing it, and some rescue work that I've seen, they are pushy, and they are, and even in this book that I learned a lot from, that John Brooker wrote, who's one of my guides, he talked about, you know, being okay to trick a spirit, because once they get there, they're gonna know it was okay. Like it's okay to trick them, kind of. It's kind of a trick feeling, and I'm not comfortable with that. And the reason I'm not uncomfortable with that is because my first thing I do is I establish trust with the guys, with the spirits, the lower level spirits. I establish trust first, and I will spend time establishing trust before I bully them into going into the light, because that's just not who I am, and I've gotten caught. I've gotten caught. You try to trick a spirit, they're like, what are you talking about? You know, they catch you, and you're like, oh, now what do I do? Now I'm a liar. They're not going to listen to me now. They already know I'm lying to them. Why would they believe me that the light is a good place to go? So I've gotten caught, and it just doesn't feel right. And also, I've noticed that there's these two different ways. I've seen it done both ways, and I've had the person doing the channeling tell me that this way is easier on them physically and emotionally. The bully way hurts them for, you know, they feel it, they're drained, they come out of it and they're just, it's a little more physically draining on them. So that has to mean something, right? That being more understanding and talking and just being more learning to trust. So here's what I do. Establish trust. So I told you guys about my questions. They were yes and no's in the beginning, and the first one was always, who is this? So, who are you, man or woman? Is this I start with, is this man or woman? Like, is there somebody here? Yes. Man or woman? Who are you? What's your name? If you're doing channeling, it's what's your name? Who are you? How did you die? They don't have to be in this order necessarily, but I find out how they died. Then I want to find out why they're stuck. So that's not always you don't always ask them, why are you stuck? Because they don't always know. You know, you don't just say, why are you stuck? Why haven't they gone to the light? Why? What's their holdup? So some of that is psychic. Some of that I'm feeling immediately. Some of that I'm getting in here, their thoughts, their feelings that I immediately get as this person's talking to me or communicating with me, whichever way I'm doing it. If I'm asking a pendulum, I'm literally just asking the question. You know, what is your name? And when I ask what the name is on a chart, it'll go to the first letter, T. It'll go to the second letter, O. Anybody get a name? Tom. Immediately. You guys all got that? Tom's here. Huh?
Her and I both got Tony.
So you guys see how the name pops in immediately? So boom. So that's how it would work. And then you have to spell the whole name anymore. So it's using the tool, but also using your intuition at the same time. You have two levels to check each other. So you know what I mean? The pendulum can be wrong sometimes. You know, your thinking can be wrong, but when you put them together, then you're a little more accurate. It's a little more. It's easier to believe. So I would just be asking these questions, and you got to find out how they. Usually, you got to find out how they die. You don't always have to find all this stuff out, but these are just some of the questions that I ask. And then you're going to console them on how they're stuck, or why they're stuck. So let's talk about an overdose. So I had an experience. I was doing a trance channel with someone, and the spirit came in, was obviously intoxicated. And they were stuck because thought they were still intoxicated. They thought they were still high. They thought they were still just enjoying their high, right? So what's the solution to that? I try to convince them that they weren't stuck or that they were they're dead. So sometimes you have to convince them that they're dead. Sometimes you got to let them know, hey, you know, you passed, and oh no, I'm just really high. I'm just really high. So in this, you know, you have to kind of counsel them on why they're stuck, because they don't realize that they're stuck. I guess this was a bad example, but let's just go on with it. So the one who was overdosed, what I did to pass them in the light is they were too intoxicated to even convince them about the light. When I talked to them about the light, so the next thing you got to do is bring their attention to the light. So anytime during a rescue, it's always good to bring up the light. For me, bring up the light. hey, do you see the light? You can go back to your questioning, hey, do you feel the light? Do you feel that? Because the minute they start to draw their attention to the light, as soon as they start to feel it, it starts to draw them, it starts to pull them, it starts to change soothes their fear. See, we get stuck because of fear. And in the light, you lose that. So they instantly start to feel the light. So anytime you can get them to focus on the light or turn their attention to it, it helps you in your rescue work. It immediately starts to help. In my opinion, the best thing you can do is start to draw their attention to the light. And some of them will fight with it. They'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to that light, so you'll get that. So what I found out doing rescue work is that I can create in the astral plane anything I think also. So what I did, this happened by accident. I was doing a rescue one time and the guy told me he can't leave because I'm tied to this chain. And I go, well, here, let me cut it for you. And I reached down and cut it. And he says, how did you do that? I've been trying to cut this for years. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I didn't think about it. It just happened. And so from there, I realized I had this, also could do what they can do in this realm for them. And so with the overdose, I said, look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a shot of this. I just watched something about this shot that sobers people up when they're on. And I said, I'm only going to give you half of this. I said, look, I can give you this pill afterwards. You can get high again afterwards if you want. They got new pharmaceutical stuff that'll blow away what you did, because he was obviously from the 60s. You can tell by the way he's talking, right? And so I told him, you can do some of this new pharmaceutical stuff and you'll be great. And I promise you can do that if you take this shot, just half of this shot, just for a little bit. So I gave him this shot in spirit, and it sobered him up just enough that I could talk to him about being dead and about what happened to him, and then counsel him into the light. So those are some of the little things. And so there's a fine line there. See, it's like, are you, don't try to trick them, but at the same time, I have control over what I do. So you see, I gave that example so you could see that it's a fine line sometimes, because you get caught and you don't know what you're talking about, then you're going to lose it. So the other main important thing I want to talk about before I go into more examples is you find the person in the light that's waiting for them. That's the key. That's really always the key. If you can figure out who's in the light, most of the time that person's there for a reason, waiting to take them. So why can't, let me ask a question, why can't, there's all these spirit guides who do rescue work. Why aren't they just listening to the guides when they come to them? If there's guides in spirit that rescue people, why aren't they just going to the spirit who's stuck there in this astral plane going, come with me, I'm going to take you in the light? Does anybody know?
Trust. Well, they've never wanted to hear from spirits because they were taught to shut that down.
True. Very true.
Their vibration is different. Our vibration is what they're used to.
Because remember, the astral plane is actually connected to the earth plane. It's not actually connected to the light. So they're coming from the light. How many times have I had a spirit come to me when I was younger and say, hey, you got to stop doing this. This is bad for you. Did I listen? I'm like, that's crazy. I don't even know what this is. How do you know immediately that that's for real? Do you even, you know what I mean? Think about that. We're on the earth plane. A spirit comes to us. How real is that for us? Do we always listen? Did it take us a whole lifetime to be trained to listen to that? Right? So, because I struggled with that question when I started doing this. Well, why are they coming to me? Like, why are these guides why are these spirit guides bringing them to me to do this? Why didn't they just do it? I don't understand. They're the spirit guides, right? But that I thought about it that way. They showed it to me like that. Well, you didn't listen. We've been sending you guides your whole life, and you didn't listen, right? And I go, damn, I guess you're right. Like, you're right. So that's a big one. But that being said, let's talk about who's in the light for you. So most of the time, there's somebody in the light, and so I go through this process finding out why they're stuck. Sometimes you don't even need to counsel them on why they're stuck. Sometimes it's just about finding that person in the light. I still go through this process. I get asked these questions, and I let spirit guide me on which ones I ask and how long I stick on it, and if I need to counsel them more, and they'll give you feedback. You'll get resistance from them in an area you need to talk about. So if they resist you and, I don't talk about that, guess what? That's where they're stuck. So, you feel this stuff out. So anyway, this rescue, sometimes this is all going on in your head, sometimes this is going on in the channel, but either way, you're working out these things, okay? Even if you're just asking in your head, why are they stuck? How did you die? You're gonna get, maybe, this feels like an accident, this feels like a trauma, this feels like, you know what I mean? So sometimes this is all being done in your head, which can be very confusing and very hard be assured it's real. So that's, you can struggle with. One thing you will always know though, when that light opens and the spirit goes in that light, you will be convinced that that was real, because it's the most amazing feeling I've ever had. And it's very much, you know it. So who's in the light? So I was using my pendulum thing, and you know how we did the name thing? So immediately, see, now they just pause. Now I just visualize my pendulum moving, and I don't even have to use it anymore. So the first letter I just saw was A. Second letter I saw was N. So who's got a name already?
Anna.
Anna, right? So Anna is in the light for Tom. What's his name?
Tony.
Tony?
Maybe two of them.
So as soon as you find that person, so remember I talked about that attention being drawn to the light? So say Tony has a mother named Anna who's in the light, and the minute I brought that attention and I say, well, look in the light, do you see Anna? And once I get the name, if you get a name of the person in the light, for some reason that convinces the heck out of them. They're just like, oh my God, yeah, and they'll look and they'll be like, that is her, what is she doing there? And so at that point, your job as a rescuer is to get them to hug in spirit, like get them to feel each other, get their attention to that feeling of love that's coming from the light, and most of the time, that's enough to just draw them in and just sucks them in there. You know what I mean? Just sucks them in there. Okay, so backing up. Fear, guilt, religion. I'm not going to go in the light because I did this, and I'm not welcome there. I'm not welcome there. Hey, did you know there's forgiveness for everyone in the light? No, not for me. Yeah, there's forgiveness. Don't you feel it? Tune into the light again. Doesn't that feel like love? Does that feel like shame? Do you feel that? Do you feel it's like it's giving you a big hug? Do you feel that? And there's forgiveness for you no matter what you did. People are like, there's forgiveness? Yeah, it doesn't matter what you did. That's not true. That's the truth. See, I'm not lying to you. That is the truth. There is forgiveness for everybody. I don't care what you did. There is forgiveness for you in the light. The people who go to those bad places are the ones who believe they're going to go to those bad places. You understand? They need to work that stuff out. Those are the levels of existence that they created for themselves. And so I know that's hard for people to swallow sometimes. I mean, there are people who've done horrible things to some of people in this room, and you think, oh no, there's no way they're going to the same place, but guess what? They can if they choose to, because there's forgiveness for everybody in the light. And that's your biggest tool when doing rescue work. One of your biggest tools is there's forgiveness for everybody. There are special workers for children I talked about. So we had one of our own in Applegate. We have one of our own, not just in Applegate. Sorry, she corrected me. The headmistress. So when we started going to that building up there, we had a lady who appeared to me. There was children there, and I rescued her. And I told her, look, I'll rescue you. This is what we tell. This is the truth. You can do more work on that side. You're here to protect these children who are stuck here. And she goes, she's like, that's why I'm here. I said, well, guess what? If you go into the light, you can become a worker who helps all the children who are stuck. She's like, I'd like that. And I go, yeah. I go, I really don't want you to leave because I like you here. I go, but I think, I promise you, if you do that, then we will always call on you to help rescue children. And she agreed to go. And that's how we created a rescue worker for, not we, but Spirit created a rescue worker who works with children. So her name is the headmistress. She puts her hair up in a bun. You see dark hair, she puts it up in a bun. She has been seen by almost every person who never came to a circle up there who had some kind of gift said, who's the lady standing back there on the chalkboard with the dark hair pulled back? Everybody saw her, and I would just laugh. We had people draw pictures of her. She was a rescue worker now, and she helps anytime you have rescue. So you can all call on her. Now that I've given her to you, you all have her. Her name's the headmistress. That's what she's called. So there's also a nun. I can't remember what her name is. What's the nun's name who does all the rescue work for children? Mother Mary or something like that? There's a Mother Mary who does a lot of rescue work with children. I've never used her. I've always gone to the headmistress just because that's who was given to me. I've actually used Bill Wilson, who is founder of AA, and I didn't mean to, it just happened one day. I guess he's doing rescue work on people in addiction. So there's all these rescue workers who do this work from Spirit, and their job is to take those stuck people, I'm assuming, and lead them to people like us who can help them. All right, so The other thing I wanted to say was like when I first started doing rescue work and I would get my pendulum out and I'd be sitting, they'd bring me this line of people and I'd be like, okay. And I'd sit down and the first one I would sit down and be like, who are you? And this is just me and my pendulum answering questions and feeling chills and yes or no questions. And the first one they would bring to me would be like 3 questions, get the name in the light, I'd go in the light, feel amazing. I'm like, man, that was easy. Let's go. Do another one, it would take me a little bit longer, a little bit harder, a little more difficult, and then go in the light. And then the third one would be even tougher. And it was like they were bringing them to me harder each time. And so each one got a little more difficult and a little bit tougher for me to work out. And that's where I came up with this idea that if Spirit has control over that, they're gonna bring you the ones you can handle. And that's where I came up with the idea that if you go looking for it, yes, but if they're bringing them to you, they have control over what the difficulty level is and who they're bringing to you. And I also mentioned that they bring me the ones that I have experience with. So if it's about addiction, they bring me addiction. If it's about, things that I have experience with, those are the ones they bring me because I know how to talk them through. All right, does anybody else have any idea, any input on that? On ways to do rescue or ideas that I missed?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Have you worked with those that have mental illness such as schizophrenia and manic depression and so forth?
Yeah, and for me, sometimes it's hard for me to differentiate the addicts that are high, and it really is difficult. I can't tell the difference between mental illness and addiction sometimes, intoxication. So they kind of feel the same to me, and they haven't brought me a lot of those. A lot of depression, yes. Not so much schizophrenia or anything like that. So it's really not my experience. So I guess they just have. Have you?
I have. I'm. A lot of times these people are trapped in between dimensions, and when they pass over, it's just the same thing going on again. They're trapped in several different dimensions, and they're scattered. So it's like bringing them back together and integrating them back so that they can be at one place at one time, their whole being, to then go forward. Sort of like in shamanism when you lose aspects of your soul.
Yeah. So do you do that are you just kind of physically seeing that?
It takes a spirit team to bring it all back together, and then collectively you can bring them forward.
Is it something you can feel, or is it something you see, or
I see, hear, and feel.
Okay.
So give me a rundown of what that looks like when you're doing the actual rescuing like that.
So
are you just visualizing this all in your head? I mean, in your vision? Or, okay.
Yeah, so what I see are the teams coming in from various levels.
Okay.
Where this aspects of the being have gone to or being influenced by. Sometimes it's attachments to having had lives in those places. So they're getting all this bombardment. Sort of like we see with kids with ADD and all this. So they're from, they're getting other input from other places. And so what you have to do is work with the team, their team, as well as our team, to bring that all back in and integrate it into a whole. And then you begin to see the soul has come back, you see the being, and then you say, and isn't it time you return fully to the light? And everyone then brings that energy. I mean, angels come, though, it's an orchestration of light beings.
Okay. And so are these other teams you're talking about, are they rescue workers from other,
they're all coming in and bringing us out.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that would be tricky. I feel like working with someone with those kind of mental illness would be kind of tricky in that aspect. But
you have to be advanced to me.
Yeah, that's probably why they haven't brought them to me.
Well, when they're alive, you guys, I work in a psych hospital, and the schizophrenics and the sociopaths and all that other stuff, they are all over the map. It's when they talk about it, it's not, I mean, they are in everywhere. And I know they visit when they're still here on the earth plane.
Well, and also there are attachments. And I work in shamanism, so you often have to handle these things, going and getting aspects of attachments that are a lower energy. That's when the shaman has to come in and work with their power animal and then go retrieve these aspects and extricate the attachments, which can be entities.
These things are basic.
So,
as you do it, you'll progress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you do it, you'll progress.
All good.
Yeah.
And they'll give you something new.
Yeah, and like I said, they have control over what they bring you. So like I said, it started out really easy for me, and then it got a little more difficult. What does that tell you? It tells you there's a plan. You know what I mean? There's control. It's not just like, oh my God, they're going to bring me something that's going to be evil. You know what I mean? That's not how that works. That's just not how that works. And the other thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about why the spirit guides don't just do it, free will. They can't. They can't make us do anything. We still have free will. They still have free will when they're in the astral plane because it's connected to their plane, correct? So we have free will, and so guides can't force us to do it. They can only bring them to somebody like us who can help them. And they're more likely to listen to us because they think we're in the same area. They think we're together. You know, it's just like I said, a spirit, you hear a voice from the unknown say something to you, you're not going to be that sure about it. But if somebody standing next to you tells you about it and shows you, then that's more convincing to you. So I also want to talk about another rescue that was really pivotal for me. I did a rescue one time, and this lady, I was doing a full trance. Someone else was doing a full trance, and I was talking her through. And I felt a female presence come in, and she was real quiet, and she was like making a sound. And I said, "It's okay, you can talk." And she didn't talk, and I heard in my head that she'd never talked. And I said, "Let me fix your voice," because I felt that she had never talked before. And so I said, "Here, I'm gonna allow you to talk. I'm gonna fix your voice so you can talk." And it was, and all of a sudden she's like, "I've never spoke before." You know, that's what she said. "I've never spoke before." And I said, "Here, let me help you walk," because she had never walked before. She had been trapped in a box or something her whole life. Like she died being confined in some kind of somewhere where she was kept, and it was not. But I was able to, because what you believe happens in the astral plane. What you believe, and I believed it when I said I can help you, and I did. I helped her speak. You understand? I helped her walk, and then we were able to communicate with her and tell her, what had happened. She didn't even know she was dead. She just thought she was trapped in a dark place because it was a dark box that she was chained to or whatever. So I was able to help her. I told you guys about the shot one, which is very important, but a lot of them aren't like that. A lot of them are done in the head. A lot of them are done just, you feel a spirit, it needs help, you're asking questions, you have to have your own way of how you get your information, yes or no questions, whatever, pendulum, whatever it is, downward rods, whatever you do is whatever you do to get your information. I just would recommend that you have two forms, it's always better to have two, so pendulum, chills, pendulum, feeling, pendulum, whatever it is for you, two of them is always better. To convince yourself. Okay, so this book, I told you guys a little bit about it, is where I got a lot of my information. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I'm going to pass it around so you guys can take a look at it. I told you guys how I was led to John Brooker in a church service one day, and then he started coming to me and he started telling me, and he's the one who swears how important this rescue work is, and he's the one who came to me and said, this needs to be done. This needs to be passed on. It's getting lost, and this is important. People are getting afraid of it, and they need to not be so afraid. Because just for as many as there are lower level, there's a whole bunch of their stuff in there that are just stuck, that just need help, and they're just people. They're just people who have passed on. Ghosts are just people who have passed on. That's it. They're just like you and me. They're just like you and me. And the other thing I want to say is that I was also told from him for a while, he told me to stop doing rescue work too. He said, "You need to stop." He said, "I need you to focus on, higher level stuff. I need you to learn." So he made me stop for a while, and he made me start focusing on becoming a medium, basically, because I was so attached to this, and a lot of us coming here like that, ghost hunting. I started watching ghost hunting shows, and the reason I was so attached to ghost hunting shows is because I was feeling the stuff. I was like, I wanted to go to those haunted places. We'd go to the cemeteries and pick the people up and bring them home. We wanted to do all that. But there was a time when he told me, "You need to stop." And that was a tough one for me to swallow, but I did. But now I understand, because now I have some control when I do it. So I'm going to say this one more time. If you are a spiritual person in any way, shape, or form, you are going to run across rescue work. You are going to have lower level spirits. They're going to see you. They're going to know you can see them or feel them. You are going to have this kind of stuff happen to you. You have absolute control You have absolute control. You can say no. You can help them. You always have the choice. You always can put your walls up. You always have control. You just have to be aware. If they're there, you need to know they're aware. I'll pass this book around so you guys can take a look at it. All right, do you guys have any questions?
Same comment. But even the angels can't interfere. They have to work with a human that understands to do the work, because by the same laws of free will, unless they're asked, especially angels, they cannot come in. So they look for a human such as yourself to bring this light, this love.
That makes sense, yeah. I feel a lot of questions, so let's do it. Let's do it.
Is it inappropriate or weird? Like,
Yes.
I
No, I'm just kidding.
always. Because I crossed someone over last night and I felt this like sense of urgency or a need to start praying for him because his biggest fear was the guilt of judgment and the judgment day. And so I just had to like sit there and I had to bring the family into the room that he was staying in, this home. And the moment I started praying, I started to feel this huge sense of like emotion. But is it appropriate? Like I felt like it was okay, but then at the same time I didn't. So, because it's my first time truly crossing someone over.
Why would you think it was, what did you think was inappropriate? Did you lead your prayer?
Yeah, because I felt like as though he didn't believe, but like I felt like he was urging or needing that acceptance, if that makes sense. So I felt like there was like this, like I believed that he didn't kind of thing, and then it just kind of worked, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. It was very bizarre.
You believed it.
Yes.
That's why it worked.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It won't always work in every situation. You will get rebuttals probably from some people who don't like that, but it obviously was the right thing to do. And the trick to this is to follow your instincts. If you feel that this is what when you do rescue work, things are popping in your head that you're supposed to say, do, feel, or know. It comes. It's channeled. It's not, if you got the urge to do that and you felt it was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
then it was the right thing to do. So just follow that sense of what Spirit's giving you. And that's always the answer to everything, but it's the truth. It's the truth. If you're feeling the urge to do it, then do it. It was a deep-rooted problem he had with religion, is what I feel immediately, but
Yes.
but he also felt it when you did it because he believed it, and he wrote on your belief.
Okay.
Okay? So he did go in the light, yes.
Yeah, he did.
So then it was the right thing to do.
Okay.
Once again, I don't know if the only one, but a lot of people are from the school of thought that it doesn't matter what you say as long as you get them to go in the light. And I'm not from that school. I don't believe that. I don't feel that. I don't like that. Personally, I think it's not right to trick anybody, and it'll backfire on you. So, but if that's what you were felt to do, then that's the right thing to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
So, so my guides bring me these souls, but I don't actually, I do cross them, but I went to your first rescue class. You know how you said, make them feel the light so they feel better because a lot of them are in pain. Well, then I bring, so sometimes that's not enough. So I bring Archangel Michael in. Okay, and then I have him wrap the wings around. Sometimes they don't even want that to happen because they're terrified, right?
Yeah.
But, so you said that the angels can't directly, is that not true, or they not? Can they directly get involved in that when I have them wrap? Or is that just in my mind?
Well, what she said was they have to find somebody in spirit or somebody here to help them.
Okay.
Right? You would be that person in spirit helping them to allow them to help. So,
Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure with the angels. That was what she said. I'm not really an angel person. I don't know a lot about it. So she asked the question that you missed.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I get them to feel the light, but sometimes it's not enough to